hi again. My name is Andrew. I'm currently a product designer at Meta, previously known as Facebook. And I'm working in reality labs, basically working on things that will be part of the metaverse in the future. And I'm here today to give you a very brief introduction to Figma. So if you're a little bit advanced or you know what Figma is, this may not be for you. It may be a little bit boring. So just diving into it, we spent the first 5 minutes doing introduction, or actually more than 5 minutes now. So I'm going to jump into going through Figma very quickly, showing an overview of what Figma is. Then we're going to dive in to do a very quick design activity to make something like this, pretty simple, just to get the feet wet. And if we have time, we can turn it into a prototype as well. And then the last 10 minutes can be reserved for Q&A. Any question you have about Figma, any question you have on being a product designer at Meta or at a startup or at any given company, and how to be a product designer and things like that. So this is the prototype I was talking about. If we have time, we can do something like this, some simple animations and things like this. So that was pretty quick. I'm going to pause here a little bit. If anyone has any question, feel free to type into the chat box as well. I'm able to see it, and I think Julia is moderating as well. Okay. Yes, if you haven't, go to figma.com or install Figma on your computer and things like that. Just have it open just so that we will be jumping in and out. And I'm gonna do a quick overview here. Sure, there's not a new file. Let me see if I can try to open a new one here. And I'm using the free account here as the personal account, just so that I have a similar experience as everyone else, in case you don't have a paid account yet. And because of that, I don't have access to open another file. Let's see, we go back in here. So regardless, like once you first open a new Figma file, there are some things you can be familiar to. So there's a home screen here where you can see all your files, all your people that you're sharing with, different pages of different things. So there's like a recent folder here where you can see different files you opened in the past. And most of the files that you created will be in drafts. And this, for a free account, is the place where you can actually save all your files, and as many as you like. And then you can move into a team. In this case, it's called my team with my initials, AQT here. And there's different projects you can have inside the team here. And in this case, I have 3 different projects here. For a free account, you can have up to three projects, and one project, but with 3 files. And inside each file, I'm going to double click on here to open it. You can have up to 3 pages with a free account. Any questions so far? Okay, Felix is giving a lot of good tips as well, and I know he's not new to Figma, so he can help out a lot as well if he can follow what he's suggesting too. So now that you're here, you can create a new page by clicking on this plus button. But let's go through the toolbar here. On top, there's a main menu here that you can go to. You can do a lot of things here. In reality, when I work, I actually hardly use any of these things unless I'm looking for something specifically. So I wouldn't worry too much about this. The cool thing about Figma is that you can have a quick action things here. So on the keyboard, you can just type, if you're on the Mac, you can just type in command/. And I believe on Windows, you can just press Control/ as well, and then you can search for anything from here. Like in this case, I want to insert a rectangle. We can just type in rectangle, but it's easier to just press R to draw a box right here. So that's the main menu, and then this is the cursor. Everyone is familiar with this. It uses the same shortcut as if you use your Adobe Illustrator. You can just press V to bring back the cursor. Figma has an interesting thing where scaling is pretty important here. It's not a default action when you're resizing something. The thing with Figma is that when you're not scaling, when you're just resizing a box or something, it's actually resizing in a smart way where the content inside is retained and in part in a, I'm not sure if you describe it. So as you can see here, if I have something aligned left and something aligned right, when I'm resizing the box, it will actually be anchored where it should be in a smart way. But if you want to scale things, you can press K or click on this, and that will actually scale up the entire box instead of resizing. And instead of like just adjusting the container. Okay. And here, frame is something that's really unique to Figma. I'm not sure if you've seen this somewhere else before. So if you're used to Sketch, there's this concept of an artboard, and same for Illustrator and things like that as well. For Figma, frame is considered a container of any kind. You can press F to start it. And this container, you can do a lot of things with it. And when we jump into working on making a screen, then we can go through, dive deeper into frames. I wouldn't worry much about slides for now. Slides is mostly for exporting images. And then this one is a tool for drawing things, for rectangle, line, arrows, ellipses, and things like that. Most of the time, I just press R to draw a rectangle, and then from there, there's a lot of things you can do with it. And the pen tool, you may be used to this already, using if you're coming from Illustrator. So this would be interesting if you want to do illustration in try to do illustration in Figma. I'm going to touch on this very briefly in the advanced class, where you can do vector-based illustration inside Figma.
Andrew, we have a question in the chat from Felix.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to the number of frames per page? So
since you're using a free account, some people might go around that by creating like unlimited pages on a page, unlimited layers on one page. So this is a frame, and then within a frame, there are layers in here. So they just call it layers instead of, I don't know, instead of object, I guess. But yeah, you can create as many frames as one. And as you can see here, I'm nesting a lot of frames inside frames. So the icon for frames in your left panel is this little thing here. It's like a hashtag thing, but it's a frame. So hopefully that answers your question. And then, yeah, text is just text. Press T to activate it. And this is to pan around. You can also press and hold onto your spacebar and scroll around as well. And commenting is interesting here. So when you can press C to comment, or just switch to commenting mode. So as you can see on the right side, let me get out of that. So on the right side right now, there's a space for design, prototype, and inspect. We can go through this later. But when you tap on comment, this becomes the commenting mode. And then you can leave basically inline comments for anyone. If you have a collaborator, you can tag people here. I think Julia opened this page before, so I can just tag her and check on this profile image or something like that. Sorry, Julia, I must spam you.
No worries.
And then she can come in here, reply to it, and just have very contextual commenting and annotation here. And you can do this with your clients, your engineers, your stakeholders, and things like that. It's really useful. And you can just like pin your comment anywhere you like. When it's done, you can just do that to dismiss it. So I think that's the basic of the toolbar so far. Up here, there's additional stuff you can do. You can there's version history built in. You can always scroll back in time to pull anything you want out of it. The file is saved automatically. It's a web-based application, so things get saved to the cloud. And there's some more advanced stuff here with publishing styles and components and things like that. This one is good for remote collaboration. You don't have to jump into a Zoom call. You can just send this file to someone, and both of you can start an audio conversation right away. And speaking of sharing, there's a lot of things you can do here. You can send share by email an account, or anyone's the link, which I'm about to do now. I can just copy the link and paste into the chat box here. So click on that link and you'll be taken to my file right now. So as you can see, as people are popping in, there are a bunch of icons or user profiles icons showing up on the top right. And there's the power of Figma, where a lot of people can be working together in the same place. So I'm just gonna duplicate this one and lock this one here. So for this one here, you can feel free to like click on things, move things around, destroy it, wherever you want with it. So the idea is that when you're reviewing this with your client, or you're collaborating remotely with your coworkers and things like that, you can always jump in here to see what they're looking at. Or if you are presenting something, so feel free to click on my my icon right here just to follow me. So the icon on top right, click on that, and then you will see that whatever I'm seeing, you're seeing as well. So it is really good for presentation. So if I'm zooming in here, chatting about, I'm trying to left align it to see if it's good or not, and talking about your design decisions and things like that during critiques and stuff like that would be really helpful. So I would do this a lot at work. I would send a link to a coworker or to the team, and then they jump in here and they just click on my face and they just follow me around. Okay, any other questions so far?
There's none in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, this is pretty casual, so just feel free to raise your hands or ask any questions. Let's see what else. Okay, so now that you're here, you can also chat in here. You can press on your keyboard to press / to bring up just to bring up inline chatting. So it is really useful for when people are presenting, and then you can just like say, hey, I don't like it. this works. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can do this in here as well. Just bring your cursor next to mine and then just start typing things out. So for the next 5 minutes, I think, or I guess for the next 20 minutes, we can jump into this. You feel free to work in this page with me, or you can open up your own file as well. And you can always copy and paste things out of here. I get access to anyone who comes in here. How I work normally is that usually I would have like a final page here for for stakeholders to look at. There's some like scratch area here, and if you're following me, then you will be taken to different pages as well as I'm going through things. Yeah. And this basically what I had in the back end earlier with so that you can see there's a lot of things that can happen in the background. But just stay in the proof activity page, and then we can play along with here. So the objective for today is to recreate this page, this screen design. Feel free to use your own images or your own copy, your own fonts and things like that, own color as well. But I will be creating this in my file, and then you can follow in either through Zoom, so we can have Zoom on one side and do it in your own page, or just do it in here with me. So the first step, this is a mobile screen, and you can press and hold on to F to activate the frame menu here. And since the mobile screen, I would go to phone on the right side, and then select whichever phone size that you like. For this, I'm using the iPhone 11 Pro or iPhone 10. So Felix is asking if frames are measured in pixels. Are they unitless? They are unitless. All this is vector-based. Sure, when you export them at 1x, they will come out as pixels, but you can go up to like however x you want. So what I just did is I press F, and then I pull out like an iPhone 11 Pro, 10 things here. You can draw it yourself as well, but it's easier if you don't know the dimensions of the mobile screen. You can just use that. Another way is to click on this and then press Command D to make a duplicate. So it will just pop up, and then, or you can just press and hold on to the Option or Alt key. So see how my cursor changed to duplicate as well, and you can just drag it out. Yeah. Feel free to name your frame with your name. So to do this, you can either click on the frame itself on the left side. You can double click on this to put in your name or whichever way you want it. Or you can also quickly Command R or Control R to rename it. Okay, and for here, let's see how I did this. So for here, you can just copy my face from here, from this page, from this frame, or you can just drag in something else. In this case, let me drag in something new, just so that we can start from scratch. If I can find it. So for Figma, you can just drag things from your desktop, from your download folder. I do this a lot. I would download a file or a page, an image file and things like that, and then just drag and drop into my, into the Figma file. And then from here is basically drop in as an image. You can resize it, press Shift and hold a corner, and then just resize it, just like what you would do in Illustrator or Photoshop. You can also resize this very precisely using the specs on the right side. So whenever you click on something, any object or layer in your workspace, on the right side, there's a lot of information here. So there's the XY coordinate in respect to the frame, the width and height, and things like that. So for this one, it's showing up as a square or as a rectangle. I can change my corner radius here just to make it into a round shape. And since I don't have a background, it doesn't really show. Let me see.
Andrew, we have another question in the chat.
It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can undo whatever you like. It's not going to affect other people's changes. And so since I dragged in a transparent PNG image here, there's actually things that you can do with it on the right side here, where with Figma, the fill color, you can just stack up as many as you like. And then you can click on this. You can change it from a solid color to different kind of gradient here. Image is considered, as a fill color. It just happened to be an image. Or you can change it to a gradient and things like that. And you can just press minus to remove it. And then what else? since I don't have a background, I'm gonna add a new color here, and then I'm just gonna drag it below my thing, and this doesn't work. Okay, I thought it was a transparent image, but I guess not. But anyway, so I added the color here so that you can see my corner radius. You can type in the number on the right side. You can also click on this one to be more specific. So it goes from top right, top left, top right, bottom right, and bottom left in terms of, so it's a clockwise thing. And then you can just change it 0 for top left, 50 here. So you can see how it can be very discrete in terms of what you can do. For my purpose, I'm just going to make it 100. And I see that it's not perfectly circular yet. I can click on this, hover my cursor over the corner radius here. And you can do this a lot with a lot of different input in Figma, like dragging and dragging left and right to change things. Okay. So I see this at 40 by 40, so I'm going to change this to 40 by 40. And I accidentally did 40, 40. Okay. So I wouldn't worry about the placement of where things are for now. But if you like, you can turn on layout. Normally, I don't work with layout because I work in the design system at Meta. So a lot of things are already spaced out, and I just pull things in as needed. But if you're starting from scratch, you can click on this frame, not this frame, but like your frame. And there's a layout grid here that you can add to. So click add, and then you see like different layout grid showing up. You can change the grid as well. There's different preset. If you're part of a design system, there are different presets that you can pull out. But for my purpose, I'm just gonna change it into columns. And you can just, depending on how you want to space things out, I'm putting this at 10 and things like that. I don't want to spend too much time here, but feel free to just know that it's here as an option. There's a lot of tutorial out there for this as well. To turn this off, to hide it, just press Control G, just to hide any kind of the guides. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this here for now, and then for the text, press T, and then just type in anything you like. For this, I have it as bold text at 40 pixels, or there's no unit, so it's just 40. And then to make sure that's fit, you can just resize this, and it will just work automatically. Okay, I'm just gonna go very quickly here. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. What I just did was holding on to Alt or Option, and then just drag it out to make a duplicate of the text, just to make it easier. Okay, you might notice that I'm not doing it in a box, like a box by box thing, because there's many different ways to work on this, but I just want to show how for Figma, you can actually do a lot of just to lay out the content first, and then you can go back in to polish the design without having to worry about things being destroyed. So that's one very good thing about Figma here. And then, so I'm doing the same thing here. If you're comfortable with inserting an image or inserting text, then just feel free to go in here and copy out to pull things out very quickly here. Whoops, that's cheating. Okay, I'll wait a little bit for everyone to catch up. And you can also group things together as well. I think that's what Felix is trying to say. So grouping is interesting in Figma. So I only use grouping to when I need to like move things together or when I really need to group it. But most of the time I actually use frame to group them, if that makes sense. And as I go through how to work with frame, that would come. Frames is F. Yes. So you can nest a lot of frames together. So the difference between grouping and frames is that for frame, there's a lot of attributes you can change with frames, but not with group. So group is just grouping together. But with frames, once you put things into a frame, you can change the corner radius. For example, you can change the background color without having to create a new layer to add the background color. So in this case, I'm going back to my page here, my frame here. And then on the right side, you can see fill here. It says white. So I can just click on this, select the different colors. Right here, I happen to have a lot of random colors in my document, so I can just like click on this to change the frame colors. So changing the frame color actually changed the background color of the whole frame. So feel free to change the color of your frames here. And in the same way with text, you can change the fill color of the text as well by selecting it and yeah, just picking the different colors. Okay. So some of you are copy and pasting from here, but I'll take a step back to break this down a little bit. So what I've been doing here is that, so I'm gonna put Jodie's face here, and we have a follow-up appointment with her. I'll put the text here. And then so notice that I'm inside, I put this text inside the frame right now. And then, but I want to group these guys together to make it into its own card here. So what I would do is press F and then draw a box around that. I'm not sure if that works. So it works right now. So any new frames you create is a transparent frame. So now I know how to change the color. I will add a fill color here, turn it to white, and add a corner radius here, 20 for now. And then if you like to add a drop shadow, you can go select the frame here and then go down to effects. And then you will have a drop shadow here. In this case, you can change the attribute here, make it more blurry or spready or whatever you like. This works similarly to like drop shadow in Illustrator, I believe, or in Sketch. But the cool thing about this is that you can add a lot of different effects. There's drop shadow, inner shadow, layer blur, where you're blurring the entire layer like this. Or you can do a background blur where you're blurring the background. Like for example, if I try to blur coming up here, I have to change my transparency here. Then you can see that it's blurring the background behind it. Okay, so you've just learned how to group things together using frames. And by putting in a frame, it makes it a lot easier to move things around and to organize things as well. So I'm going to do the same thing here by inserting a picture. If you go to class 1 intro page, and then move your cursor down here, or you can just click on my head and then just pick one of these images. So I've tried to copy and paste it out. Don't move it around. Just Command C or Control C to copy whichever one you like. So I'm just copy this one here, and then bring it back to your file or your page. For those who are working outside of this file, you may not, the image will show up, but they will not show up as a component. And I can get a little bit more into that later. So I just copy and paste that out here as an image, as an instance of the component. So you can see that this layer has a different color here. On the left side, it's purple here. That indicates it's a component. A component is similar to symbols in Illustrator. And basically, what that means is that once you make changes to the master component or the primary component or the symbol, then the changes will be reflected in the instance as well. The different and the way for you to know that this is an instance is that the icon here is a I don't even know what this is. Blinking out, but it's basically an empty
diamond.
Diamond, yes, thank you. As opposed to when it's the original component is there's like not empty diamond. There's like there's a four little filled up diamonds here, so you would know that is an original one. Okay. So the cool things about components is that once you have an instance here, you can see that on the right side, there's a drop-down list. So you can click on this, and then you can select a bunch of different instances if they show up. So we're slow today. Is this showing up for anyone if you're using it on your file? Or not your file, but in my file right now. Okay, so technically it should be showing up. So a bunch of those illustrations will actually show up here. Actually wondering if it's messing it up.
Well, I could see it.
Okay.
Like I could see the list.
Yeah, so you can just select a different image and then it will be swapped out immediately. And then if you need to go back to the source component, just click on this thing and it will take you back to the main component. Okay, so let's continue with this. You have an image here. And then to move faster, I'm just gonna copy the text out. And again, I'm pressing F to draw a frame around this and add the color. I think someone just stole my image.
Oops.
Thanks. So yeah. So if you have like different layers with the different styles, you can with the same style, you can also click on one that you like, right click on it, and then copy and paste the properties of it. And then once you paste once you have the appropriate copy, you can just paste it into a new thing, and then it will apply the exact same properties to the new frame or the new layer. Okay, I think we're running short on time, so we might not. Yeah, we're not going to have time to go through prototyping, but hopefully I'll be able to touch upon that in the advanced class if you want to learn more about prototype. But so far, how's everyone feeling about this? Oh, Felix, you can right click and then go to copy and paste. And there's a bunch of stuff you can do here. The really cool things about Figma is that you can copy as PNG, which is Shift Command C or Shift Control C. this is really, really useful when you're sharing things to people in Slack or in an email and things like that. So this will copy and paste the whole, you can select anything, right? Like from a frame or a screen, and it will be pasted out as I'm just gonna paste it here, but you can just paste it out as as an image somewhere. And when it's copied, it's actually copied at 2x size, just to do with retina display and things like that. You can resize it if you want, but notice how this now pasted as an image. So everything is locked in, and you can just do this very quickly when you're tapping in between email and things like that. Yep.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, because you suggested using frames to group objects instead of actually just grouping them, is there a use case for just grouping things?
There are. I haven't really thought about it. There are use cases for grouping things when frames are not needed.
Sure.
Like for example, let's see. Let's jump in here. For example, these two things, they don't really exactly need to be friends, and I can just group them together, so I can move them together here. So when this group is showing up as this dotted square here, and then this group together here.
Okay, and the reason why you would want to put all of those things into a frame, like the entire package there, like with the background and the photo, is so that you can make changes to it,
yep,
like globally as a group very easily.
Yeah. So what you're asking is components, basically. So what you can convert it to a component very quickly by using the shortcut, or just right click on it and say create component. And for Figma, different from Sketch, what Sketch does is that will throw this into a different page. But for Figma, it becomes a component right in and there. Some people like to move this out into a different page just to be more organized, but you can just feel free to work on this directly. And the cool thing about this is that now I'm changing the original components here, right, to make more space. And I'm gonna option or outer option to drag it out to make a new one. It's getting cut off because I have everything here in a frame, and you can toggle on clipping content or not. So this is helpful where when you're you're trying to design for things that are beyond the fold or outside the screen and things like that. And notice how the picture didn't get carried over because it's actually not inside the frame. It became floating out here. You can just easily drag it back into this original component here, and then it will show up. And once you're here, you can, I don't know why my instances are not showing up here, but basically there's a drop-down list here, and then you can just select a different one very easily. Oh, here it is. So the preview is not working, but I can do it within here as well in the context menu. So right click on it, and then I can just swap the instance to something else.
Nice.
I haven't really gone over cleaning this up to make it more aligned with different grid system. I think that is pretty basic in terms of aligning things. So it looks kind of messy here, but it's I'm just showing the different tools here. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think that's basically it here. Does anyone have any other questions so far? This is super basic. There's a lot more you can do with Figma. Hopefully just make it less scary to get started.
Great.
Oh, one cool things about Figma is that I haven't noticed this anywhere else. So if you select, if you make a selection, right? In this case, I'm selecting this home screen. It's showing me all the colors in this selection. There's a bunch of random colors here because of the illustrations, but let's say if I want to change the color of my my screen, basically, I can just easily select a different color, choose my primary color here, and change it to a completely different color. And the images I put in here, they're SVGs, so they're vector-based images, and you can just swap them out very easily. So it is really cool when you're just testing out something, trying to see if the colors works or not. Okay, we have a few more minutes. So I'm gonna show you what Figma is also known for are its plugins. If it shows up here. So here you can install a lot of different plugins, and feel free. And once you go in here, you can browse the plugins in the community. So a lot of these plugins are really useful. So for example, we have Autoflow here, and this is a super useful plugin, but I think Figma is coming out with a new feature to have this built in natively. But for Autoflow, you can run this, but you can basically draw flowchart or flow diagram for, to convey. Why is it not working? Oh, because it's locked. So basically, show to your clients or your engineers how things go together. For example, you can click in here. I selected this layer, and imagining if I tap on this will open up this other screen right here. So we'll add the arrows in directly. So this saves a lot of time for us not having to draw in flows directly like that. So that's one example of the plugins. And there are other things as well. So feel free to explore the plugins, and these are all free. So you can just go in and browse the plugins in the community, and then you can download them. And then inside the Figma community, there's different things you can look for as well. So in this case, I found like this page of all the someone created is like all these different iOS for the iPhone, different components here that you can just like pull in. You might have noticed that I use it here for the status bar. So there's something that someone made before. And since I opened that from a library file, you might notice here that there's it's an instance of a component, but it's not inside my file. I can click here for it to take me to the library file. And that's basically a glimpse into how larger companies work, or different team, larger design teams work. They would have like a common library where it's like one source of truth, where all the components or for the company or for the product, for the designs is in that library, and different designer can pull from that library. So think of the library like as a pantry of some sort with all the ingredients that you ever need, and then you can just take the ingredients back into your kitchen or your file, and then you can just play with them. But the cool thing about that is like I guess the pantry wasn't that great of an example, because because whatever you take out is always in sync, so you can change things in the library, and that will be reflected in your file directly. So for this case, like if your company is changing the branding, changing the fonts and things like that, you can do this from the library, and it will be reflected in all the design file as well. All right. If we have 8 minutes left, I think I wanted to reserve this time for just questions, Q&A, just so people have time to ask questions about working in Figma or working at different places and things like that. So feel free. I might stop sharing for now.
Oh, there's a question from Felix in the chat.
How do the copyrights work with templates that are shared within the Figma community? So I guess it depends on the person who shared it, I guess. So I think a lot of these things are open source. And yeah, that's one thing that's a little bit different from where we came from, where a lot of the work there's a lot of concern around copyright, but for open source libraries, it's just free to use. Some people just want practice, some people want to put some samples out there so you can buy it from them, buy more stuff from them and things like that. So yeah, so you can just freely use some of these things. I want to put out there, you can use it unless they ask you to give attribution.
Oh, Nitai had his hand raised.
Yeah, I don't have much experience. Like I used it, I think, once before, but fonts, and like if fonts are not installed on the specific machine that you're working on, it shows like an error and you cannot edit the text. Is there a workaround except like installing the fonts?
You will have to install the fonts.
Okay.
That goes back to the licensing and copyright. So
yeah, okay, yeah.
You will have to install that.
Okay.
But if you're part of a larger team, the team can manage the font, and then it will be distributed to your files.
Okay.
Yeah, so you might have noticed that for those who are on Windows, I incorrectly assumed that everyone would have Helvetica. So I chose Helvetica, but of course Windows doesn't have it. And yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Don't even know what the font is.
We have a raised hand from Kara.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've heard people say like, oh, are your designs like pixel perfect and ready to be sent over to engineering? And what does that mean? And how do you make something pixel perfect?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me share my screen again. That's a good question that I forgot to touch on. So basically, pixel perfect is something. I need to stop locking this. Okay. So this basically, let's assume that it's the final design is pixel perfect, meaning that it's aligned to a grid system. Everything is. Let me see if I can pull it out. Like, just imagine that it's aligned. I don't think a lot of it's aligned here, just because I did it very quickly. But depending on how your design system is, like for example, you have like a 20 pixel or 20 point margin on all the sides and things like that. So this is what it means by pixel perfect. And when you send it to engineers, they might not have edit access, but they can have view access, and then this is what they would see in the inspect panel here. So they can go here, click on anything, and that will give them the properties that they would need. So in this case, it's telling them that the profile icon here is 40 by 40, the positioning of this and things like that. They can copy all this, and then you can see what I just copied. So that copy as CSS. They can change different codes as well for iOS and Android. Of course, like for engineers, they would need to. They can quickly do this, or they can build their own design CSS style and libraries and things like that, and pull from that as well. There's even colors that they can choose from. In this box, I have a drop shadow. There's drop shadow that they can pull from as well. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
So this helps a lot with designers having to write up like the redlining and specking and things like that. Felix, I'm not understanding your question.
Hi, sorry, yeah, just if it's pixel perfect on one, like for example, if they copied just pixel dimensions, it wouldn't be copying dynamic scaling or anything like that. Would there be another way to export it?
Yep. So for me, like I've worked with an Android engineers, and they actually asked me for percentage. And in this case, like it's in BP here. And I believe for Android, they can scale this up themselves or inside their development toolbox. Yeah, so I mean, like some work that you still need to do, like for example, if you want this to be not 20 pixels from the right side, but like 5%, then you need to tell your engineers that.
Okay, yeah, that's thanks for the definition there, because for web design that might vary between devices a lot, and it's good to know that at least Figma's got the defined pixel widths, but like not necessarily dynamic.
Yeah, and I would use like, I didn't exactly do this using iOS design language, the human interface design, or for Android material. So if you follow those things, and there are UI kit as well out there, if you pull from that, then some of these things are named appropriately, and then they can just like translate that into code as well.
Cool. Are there any final questions? We're just at the end of the class now, so
I got a tricky one if you want.
go for it.
Is there anything in Figma that Figma can't really do well?
It cannot play videos. So well, I mean, but that's asking a lot for a design file. But sometimes when we're prototyping, we would use GIFs. So they actually, Figma does show animated GIFs, but videos sometimes would be very useful. And commenting is not that great right now. When I showed earlier, you had to press C to switch to commenting mode. Excuse me. And sometimes this gets missed. You have to re-tag people and things like that. And I think they're working on improving that. There's a lot of different things that come into play as well, but for the most part, it's working very well.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, I know that Julia has to move on to the next session, so feel free to email me at andrewtran@gmail.com. I'll put my email here if you have any questions. And yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you to everybody who joined today. I hope that you enjoyed the session and got to test some things out and dip your toes into the waters of Figma.